Hi everyone, I'm Robert Kelly. This is my third video weblog. I'm going to probably upload this to YouTube as well as Facebook. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the social political world as it is right now. A lot of you know that I'm heavily interested in these matters. Always really have been. And I'm interested this year, of course. Now, in 2 months' time, November 8th, there will be an election for whom will be President of the United States, followed by whom will be elected to the Senate, a third of the Senate getting up for grabs, as well as several governorships, some mayorships, county measures, propositions, House representatives. It's all going to be at one day. Now, what's the biggest issue? Well, most years, one would say that the biggest issues for any election in America are domestic. They are issues pertaining to jobs, race relations, class struggles, gender politics, civil rights, health, medicines, education, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, environment, climatology, finances. One would think these issues would be the most important thing people would talk about. And yes, I know people have problems with wedge issues such as abortion, but those wedge issues are of importance, and they probably are of a lot more of importance than one would think. This campaign for the presidency, I don't really think this year it's domestic issues, and I don't think it really has been since the latest around June of this year when the UK held a referendum and voted to, by a vote of 52% to 48%, the people in the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. In short form, Brexit. You'll hear a lot of that terminology as the days and years go on. I think that changed everything as to how this election is being presented. Because it started out a couple years ago, in the preliminary stages, it started out as being about domestic issues. Now it's not. I mean, domestic issues such as the circumstances that are occurring with police brutality, with racism against African Americans, those are issues which are being talked about in national media, and should be. But most of the other issues that are being discussed, first obliquely, but it's going to be more specific, are going to be related to international issues. And there really is one international issue, is there? That is Russia. Are we going to be at war with Russia within a year, within a couple of years? Or are we going to be at peace with Russia? Yeah, I hate saying this, but throughout my entire life, it seems as though the United States, its military, its the new conservative movement, the neoconservative movement, the neoliberal movement, in a way, the military-industrial complex, our financiers, the bankers, they've had this hate saying this, it's been a death wish. They want to go into Russia to steal the gold, to steal the oil, to maintain resources that they think belongs to them, but it does not. And they know, well, at least they pretty much should know, that Russia, its people, its leadership, Vladimir Putin, among others, they will not stand for this. You know, I tell people that when I was born in 1983, there was a good chance that I probably would not have lived to see my first birthday. Because that was at the apex in which the United States and the former Soviet Union were at the brink of war that was going from cold and was going to go hot. Didn't happen, thankfully. But unlike a lot of people, it wasn't thanks to Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan. It wasn't thanks to his people. It was actually thanks to the Soviets. It was actually thanks to a lot more liberal-minded individuals, a lot more peace seekers, and people realizing about the effects of a nuclear war and the detonation of nuclear weapons that pulled the world from the brink of total annihilation. Now, I'm seeing this happen again. And it's shocking that it's not coming from most of the Republican Party this time. Usually it is Republicans that are saber-rattling. It's not the way right now. It's actually a lot of Democrats. I'm a Democrat. I support and am voting for the former Senator and the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, for President of the United States. I think domestic-wise, she is best. What about foreign policy-wise? I guess he's okay. But it needs to be admitted that she is awful. Well, maybe that's what we need. But we also need to pick our fights. And don't pick the ones that are not going to be won. Why is it that, to me it seems that this year more so than other years, but gradually over the past 4 years after Vladimir Putin was re-elected and returned to the presidency as if he never left, why does it seem that at this time it looks much more like we're on the verge of disaster, of a military conflagration with Russia that we cannot walk away from? Well, I noticed something earlier today. I delved through the archives of the Washington Post, and it mentioned of a 1990 memo and declaration from President George H.W. Bush that was rather top secret. He didn't even tell his advisors about it at the time. In that matters between the Bush senior administration and the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev were going to be basically curtailed in favor of effectively the United States running roughshod on Russia through the oligarchs, through the installation of Boris Yeltsin as president, effectively that the Cold War would be over for the Russians, but the Americans would still be fighting it effectively. And it looks like, in a lot of respects, that is what is happening right now. That's what's happening. It looks like to me. So why? Well, I think I have an answer. You know, the truth of the matter is, the Earth is dying. I don't know how long, the way things are going right now, how long the Earth, as it is right now, is going to last. What with the rising sea levels, what with climate change, what with all the different resource wars. I think if we're not careful, decades from now, we're going to be in a situation in which wars will be fought over water. And so anybody that's seen the Mad Max movies, where wars and degradation are fought over lack of water and lack of natural resources, effectively the Australian outback. Nobody really wins those cases. So, what I think is going to happen is a lot of what Senator Clinton's advisors, herself, among others, they feel like, you know, we're Americans, we could just take the resources of anybody. I feel like they're right. Could be. But we did not ask the common Russians, the common people of the rest of the world, what they felt about it, did we? We just thought, oh, we're Americans. We can do whatever the frick we want. Can't be able to do that in this world today. Really cannot. And if one does it, that's not good, is it? So, I look at that, the saber rattling from the Democratic side, and it's been that way for a while. And a lot of people have talked about it. When I mentioned earlier the Brexit issue, a lot of people that were for the Remain campaign, for UK to remain in the European Union, they had mentioned, well, if we leave the EU, it brings a lot of opportunities for Russia and Vladimir Putin to come in and take stuff. That's not true. It was never true. I tend to also think that even when some celebrities had mentioned about it, their reasonable approaches to remaining in the EU, many of the numerous celebrities were talking about it. To me, when I read those things, I thought, okay, you're right on many of those issues, but you're wrong on the issue of Russia. But it looks to me like the issue of Russia is, and by extension China and the EU and Great Britain, because Great Britain under the prime ministership of Theresa May seems to be doing things differently than what they were doing when David Cameron was prime minister. They're both conservatives. So that's not gonna mean much of anything to me. But different approaches. What do I think then will occur with the United States? Well, I think this way. If the focus is going to be on war and on military issues in for the U.S., I don't think we're going to really survive the next World War, if it ever comes, should it ever come. And I doubt that we are ever going to really recover from our folly. Now, this is where there's been a difference in approach between the Clinton campaign, and I guess even the campaign of Gary Johnson is libertarian, and the campaigns of Donald Trump and Dr. Jill Stein. They are, particularly Trump, actually, which knowing about his business deals and his ties of Russian financial interests is not a surprise, but it could be the extent that, say, Trump gets in the White House. Domestically, I think we're going to be screwed. But on an international front, there's a great chance that we might not be. And any potential situation of a war or anything could be resolved with massive intensive diplomacy, similar to what occurred during President John F. Kennedy's time with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Discussions over the phone between him and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. So yes, Trump could make, and his people could make phone calls to Putin and his people, for that to happen, and things would be called off, and effectively wars would not be. I also tend to believe, in some respects, that these matters regarding IS, Daesh, whatever you want to call it nowadays, which I think is not what we're being told about. You know me, I tell me these groups are terrorists. I always have to say, well, who's financing them? Because you don't know. If you say you don't know, these legitimate people. The international matters of conflicts could probably stop. That's a benefit, because then we would know that if, say, a Trump presidency, should it come to that, is domestically not the best, we can focus on that in 2020. Should it come to that he does run for a re-election, should it come to even getting elected. I have to tell you, there's a likelihood that he could get elected. Polls are saying perhaps. Now, not every poll. ABC News, Washington Post, Marist, McClatchy Marist have said Clinton's leading up by 7 points. That's what I hope. But a lot of other polls think otherwise. So, but again, I would not vote for Donald Trump, and I have no intention of doing that. But I know the risk of a Clinton presidency. Domestically, we'll be okay. And hopefully a lot of focus will be on the domestic issues. But on an international level, look, having been a senator, having been a Secretary of State, having been a woman in a man's world, you cannot fault Hillary Clinton. You cannot really fault President Bill Clinton either for being hawkish. to go along with the rest of the leadership and the Clinton family's own financiers, people that really run the world, that really run all the finances that is positioned in the States and in the West. It's the idea of, well, you cannot show weakness or effective humanity in a world that really doesn't show you it back, so you have to be even tougher than the other person. I get that, but I think that is going to be a problem on issues pertaining to foreign policy. I'm sorry to say that. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of dread what's occurring with these debates. First off, I actually still don't think these debates are going to happen. If they were definitely going to happen, in my opinion, I already would have tried to get tickets to see it at Hofstra University, the first one. It's my alma mater. Of course I would go. Or at least try to. I still don't think the debates are going to happen. I think Hillary Clinton, or Donald Trump, probably Hillary Clinton will come out and say, no, I'm not debating. Either her health is not in the best shape, or the more honest statement of, I'm not debating this guy. I'm not even going to stand 10 feet from him. I wouldn't touch him with a 60-foot pole. That's how I would feel. I also would say, look, Lyndon Johnson did not debate anyone in Barry Goldwater in 1964, Senator Barry Goldwater. President Richard Nixon did not debate Hubert Humphrey or George McGovern, Senator Hubert H. Humphrey, Senator George McGovern, in 68 and 72. Why should I debate? She could always say, if Jimmy Carter did not debate President Ronald Reagan in 1980, that one debate, Carter probably would have been reelected president in 1980. That's what I believe, honestly. So, I don't think there will be any of these debates. But if there are, first off, it's going to be a surprise that it's actually happening. But the second thing is, I know that both candidates and the moderators, the people, that are going to ask questions in the second debate, they don't want to talk about the international issue. They really don't want to talk about Russia, because if they talk about it, yeah, sad to say, Donald Trump would be in the right on the issue. Hillary Clinton would probably not be in the correct format. She probably would be in the wrong. We need to seek peace with our allies, with much of the rest of the world. In particular, the rest of the world that also has as much nuclear weapons, or a sampling of the same amount of nuclear weapons as we have. Would I antagonize a person just because of some differences that I don't know, and cause that person to fuck me up? I wouldn't do that. So, I don't think people want to have. I don't think that if the debates occur, I don't think Hillary Clinton and her team would want to talk about Russia. Because if it comes up, maybe we should be honest and say, look, we're going to head to war with Russia, or we're in a conflict with Russia. And I remember reading comments about this from top general sources saying, look, we're going to go in, so we need strength. We hope that it doesn't happen that way. I hope it doesn't happen that way. Because if it does, then who's the hawkish candidate? Who's the candidate for peace? Mind boggles. Look, I'm hoping, should the debate happen, Clinton clears the floor against Donald Trump, but she hasn't been really. The campaign hasn't been as good as I would hope. Maybe she'll good. Well, maybe it'll turn back to her favor. Let's hope so. But the deal should have been sealed years ago. It's another matter, and I'll talk about it later. But this Donald Trump becoming potentially president of the United States, that wasn't supposed to happen. Honestly, it was supposed to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton, and Jeb Bush taking in. Clinton looking in easily. I would have hoped that would have been the case. It's not. It's a lot different right now. So I think the situation is rather dire on the international level, because we can talk about domestic issues all we want, and we should. But when the underlying issue of the United States is, are we going to be saber rattling, or are we going to be making deals favorable to both nations in a dispute? You'd have to go for the latter. You can't be saber rattling nowadays, because that's going to get all of us killed. As I said, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I like the guy, but I'm not voting for him. Okay? Because I don't know what he's going to do on the domestic front. I know what Hillary Clinton would do on the domestic front. I've always known what a Clinton mindset, a third-way Democratic ideal would do on the domestic front. And that works. It's been proven to work. But just as long as she doesn't get to having, and her people having to talk about Russia, maybe there's a greater chance that she can actually seal the deal and actually get elected. Because right now, notwithstanding my hopes, it doesn't look too good for the Democratic Party. It doesn't look too good for them to retain the presidency. In fact, several historians like Alan Lichtman have said, look, it's likely that Trump's going to be president of the United States. People like Scott Adams, the guy that does Dilbert, have said, we've seen this occur before. Trump's the guy. A lot of Democrats, even the Clinton people, are starting to say, well, I don't know, maybe we can survive with a Trump presidency. Now, we hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm going to be voting to make certain it doesn't happen. At the same time, should Clinton be elected president, let us just have it be focused on it. And I hope it goes this way. I don't know. But I hope it goes this way, that the focus is on domestic issues, not foreign issues. We don't want to go into another bigger war in Syria and Libya than we already are. We don't want to go into a war with Russia and China, both trade and military. We don't want to go into a war with people in Europe. We don't want to do that. We don't want to go into war with Great Britain, because believe me, that could probably happen. We don't want to do that now. We need to see peace. And yeah, I'd have to concede that Donald Trump might be the peace candidate in this matter. I'm not voting for him, but he might be the peace candidate. Nonetheless, I think the Russia question and the issue of, are we going to war with Russia, or are we going to make deals with Russia? That's the underlying theme of this presidential race and of the state of America this fall, this year. Because I'll tell you this, if, and we hope it doesn't happen, but in the somewhat likely event that Hillary Clinton does not win the presidency, we know why. And it's going to be the saber rattling against Russia. You guys have been seeing it on MSNBC. Joy Reid was calling Donald Trump a Putinite. I would have initially thought being a Putinite or Rusky or sympathizer back in the day was a badge of honor. I didn't take it for liberal-minded people. I didn't take it to look at it as like, oh, it's bad. You can find more of that on YouTube, mind you. But this Russia issue is probably gonna, if this continues, and I better hope this question is not talked about in the debates. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch a lot of the debates because at least 2 of those nights there's going to be a football game on. And I like my football, you know that. And I was kind of disappointed in the 2012 debates. You know, I'll talk about them at a later time. Suffice to say, I didn't like them. But I'm hopeful that the issues of foreign policy do not get talked about, because if that's the case, Trump could just say, "Look, I want to make deals with Russia and everything like that." If Clinton says, "You don't know what you're talking about. He's bad," or something like that, people are going to choose the candidate that doesn't want to go to war. They're not going to choose the candidate that wants to go to war. I think people are really tired of wars. It's been 15 years since 9/11, but the memories still remain for people like myself. If Clinton loses this on November 8th, I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm really, really concerned about this. It's going to be because of the potential warmongering from the Democratic Party and neoconservatives regarding Russia. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to. The people themselves. Nobody really wants to go to war with Russia. That's national suicide. Let's just hope it's not taken this far. Focus on the domestic issues. That's what makes you win. That's what the people really want to talk about. Because if it's going to be about international policy, they're going to take the peaceful route. They're not going to take the and if it means going against everything else in their body that is against their more liberal-minded beliefs, with the exception of peace, which is a liberal-minded belief, yes. You gotta really think. You gotta really think how it's gonna work out. Okay, I've probably talked a little longer than usual. I've been really wanting to make this short. I gotta try to make these things shorter next time. If you have any suggestions as to how I can make them shorter, please leave them in the comments or talk whenever. I got more to write about on something to say if anybody here, something to say if anyone hears, either the Blogspot one or the WordPress one. I just wrote something regarding my thoughts on the 15th anniversary of 9/11. You should check that out. Also, I got some ideas for recent movies that I saw. I didn't see Snowden yet, but I did see a couple movies that I think you probably would enjoy. We'll talk about them later. Anyway, subscribe, like this, make comments on it, and hopefully we can do a better video next time soon. Okay, so you have a good night. Bye bye.